Everyone. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our live community classroom with Michaels. Today we have Tamara from Moogly with us, ready for another exciting class. Today we'll be talking about gauge swatches. My name is Patricia from Your Inspirations, and I'll be over in the chat on the right side of your screen, helping you answer questions. So yeah, you have any question, pop it in and we'll be sure that Tamara answers them.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody. And thank you for joining me today. As I said, I'm Tamara from Moogly, and I want to talk to you today about crochet gauge. So first and foremost, what does that mean? Well, basically, the crochet gauge means how many stitches and how many rows you have over a certain amount of space. Sounds kind of vague, right? But basically, it's a matter of measuring how many stitches and how many rows you're getting inside, say, 4 inches, which is pretty typical, so that you know that your stitches are the same size as the designer's stitches. Why is that important? Well, it's not always important. Crochet gauge isn't really important necessarily for things like blankets or dishcloths, things like that, where being off an inch or two aren't really going to matter. As long as the blanket's big enough and warm enough, you're all set. But if you want to crochet garments or things with pieces that need to be fitted together, then you need to make sure that your stitches are the right size so that you get the size of garment you want. You could follow a pattern perfectly, start to finish, but if your gauge or your tension level, that's another word, your tension level determines your gauge. If your gauge is different, your sweater is going to be a different size. So that's basically what gauge is for. Gauge is measuring the size of your stitches to make sure that they're the right size for that pattern. And we're going to talk about ways to alter your gauge here in just a little bit. But I want you to understand that gauge is important if you need to make something that has to fit. Again, if you're making something like a blanket or a washcloth, I wouldn't worry too much about it, as long as you're getting a good enough size that you want. But anytime you need that thing to be an exact size, whether it's a garment or it is a household item, that's when crochet gauge is going to be a really important thing for you to focus on. Now, most patterns, at least the patterns where gauge is important, are going to include that information on the pattern itself. So where you're going to find that just depends on the pattern you're following. Most of them will have it near the materials list, and it will often look like something, for instance, like 12 stitches it might have an X, by say 10 rows equals 4 inches. That might be 12 double crochets, might be 12 single crochets. It might be the main stitch pattern used. So gauge is going to change pattern to pattern. It's going to depend on what you're making, how they write out that gauge. So that's something you need to look for inside the pattern itself. Again, it's usually kind of right around the sizing information or up near the materials list. So that's where you would look for it on your pattern to find out what the gauge is for that thing you're making. Now, there are also gauge swatch information on your yarn labels, and that is typically for single crochet stitches. So let's go ahead. I'm going to move my hand camera in here. I have to hit my little recording notice on it. And let's go ahead and talk about the gauge that you'll find on the label a little bit. I'm going to turn this one over here. This is Bernat Softy Chunky. And these little squares right here are the gauge measurements that are given for this yarn by the manufacturer. Now you can see here, let me try and bring that up a little bit closer so we can get it a little clearer here on camera. There we go. So this one right here with that little crochet hook in the middle, this is going to be the one for crochet specifically. And you can see here on the left, it says 4 by 4 inches, and at the top it says 10 by 10 centimeters. 4 inches and 10 centimeters are the same measurement. So for those of you like me who didn't learn a whole lot of that in school, it turns out those are the same. Now, they recommend for this yarn that you use a USL hook, which is an 8mm. You can see right above the little hook icon there. And they say that if you use a USL hook with this yarn, 8 single crochets, see the 8 SC right there, and 9 rows, the 9R there on the side, will give you a 4-inch by 4-inch or a 10cm by 10cm square. So then you can extrapolate out from there. But that said, that is just the manufacturer's gauge. It is the most average gauge. I'm not sure exactly what average crocheter they use to figure those out, but that is sort of the set gauge. Now, That doesn't mean you can only use an L hook with this yarn. You could use a different hook with this yarn. You could use a different stitch, obviously, any of the crochet stitches, not just single crochets, but this is sort of a jumping off point. When you follow a written pattern for this yarn or for any other yarn, the designer may have well used a different hook size, and they're probably going to have a different gauge because it's going to be based on what their gauge is. So basically, that's basically what crochet gauge is, but what affects crochet gauge? Because like I said, yours is going to be different than this very, very typical average crocheter that they found to make that one. It just depends on your tension. A lot of it is in how you hold your hook. It's in how you tension your yarn when you're working with your yarn in your left hand or your right hand, whatever your non-hook hand is. I'm right-handed, so it would be my left hand. Let me move these out of the way here a little bit. When you are tensioning that yarn in your left hand right here, you're putting, you're holding the yarn still so you can work with it, but you're also might be pulling up on it, or you might be running it really loosely. And then of course, there's how you use your hook. Are you keeping your hook stitches really close down to your work, or are you letting them flow and be loose? All of these things can affect your gauge. That is your personal tension level, and it's going to affect the size of your stitches. So if you're crocheting along and you're feeling very tense, you're going to make tighter stitches too. If you're feeling very relaxed and loose, you're going to make slightly looser stitches. So your personal crochet tension is both a function of how you normally crochet and how you're feeling in the moment that you're crocheting, which can make it tricky. So I want to talk about a couple of tips that you can do right away to try and create a more even tension for yourself. So one of the tips for this is I want to talk about, first and foremost, since we've got them out here, crochet hooks. Now there are many, 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 of course, crochet hooks on the market, and you should absolutely play around and find the ones that work best for you and the ones that give you a crochet gauge and tension that's nice and even, so all your stitches are the same size, and that feels good in your hand. So I have a few here. This one right here is sort of your standard Susan Bates, right? We've kind of your starter hook. We all get these, I think, a set of these when we learn how to crochet. And these are great. But you can see how the handle itself, the part that I hold in my hand, is relatively small. It's only about as big around as the actual hook itself. So the smaller ones of these can get quite small. So what you can look at doing is investing in hooks with larger handles. And I've got a few different ones here. Let me pull out this one as well. There's these Susan Bates makes with the aluminum handle. This is called, I believe, their ergonomic handle. It's not quite squishy, but it's almost squishy, I want to say. It has a feeling like it wants to be squishy. And then there are the bamboo ones, which, as you can see, I think are the biggest ones overall. So these are the ones that I really like for my hands. It helps to have a bigger handle because it helps open up your hand. When you've got these little guys, it's very easy to really get kind of a hard grip on those, and really be, holding onto it like crazy. I kind of like remember when we were learning how to write cursive. Oh boy, I'm dating myself there, but learning how to write cursive and things in school. And I don't know about you guys, but I had a tendency to hold onto my pen or pencil so hard that I would put a little divot in my finger there. So I know that I can be a really tight gripper of my hooks. So by using a hook with a larger handle, it forces your hand to open up a little bit more and just keep it a little bit looser. It's harder to, iron fist and grip that pencil or hook rather as you're using it. So that can be a good tip there. Try hooks with larger sizes, especially if you are feeling like you're getting a lot of hand fatigue. If your hand's getting really sore after just a few minutes of crocheting, you are probably holding onto that hook way too tight for your own comfort. Definitely try and loosen up your hands. But let's come back to me for a second, rather than the overhand one, because I want to show you another tip for this. The other thing you can do is just literally relax yourself overall. What you want to do is kind of start at the top. I know when I get really tense, I always say I feel like my shoulders are up in my ears. That's where I hold my tension, and we all hold it a little differently, but I think a lot of us hold it right up here. So what you want to do when it's time to sit down and crochet is really just take a moment to relax. Crocheting should be a fun and relaxing activity. So go ahead and pull those shoulders down out of your ears. Let them relax. Shake out the tension in your hands. Shake out the tension in your arms. Take a deep breath, before you start to crochet, and that will help you loosen up those stitches as well. Another thing you can do, and this is also really helpful if you find you're getting a lot of hand or arm fatigue, which some of us after those crochet marathons can really get, is to put a pillow on each side of you, on, in your chair or on the couch, wherever you're crocheting, high enough that you can rest your elbows on those pillows. So then you can really focus on resting your elbows down into those pillows. It's going to pull your shoulders down, and it's also going to support your arms so that as you're working, your hands aren't holding the weight of the hook and the weight of the project and the weight of your arms and all that. You really want to kind of support the project on your lap if you can, especially if it's getting big and heavy, or on a table if a lap isn't feasible, and rest and really support those elbows. And that will help with things like tennis elbow and carpal tunnel and things that really can get to you when you crochet a lot, basically. So put those pillows under there, relax your shoulders, and try and, just relax your hands and everything else. Also take breaks every once in a while and go ahead and stretch out your hands. I have to do it. We all have to do it. Doesn't have to be anything, formal or anything. Just really get the stretches going and get your hands to relax. That will help greatly with your personal tension as well. So I'm just trying to check my notes here and make sure I got all of that. So before we go back here and talk then about the nitty gritty of how to make a swatch, do you have any questions I could answer? I'm gonna let Patricia find those.
Very attentive, paying attention. No questions so far. So this is a good reminder that if you have any questions, pop them in the chat. And oh, wait, maybe Jamie has a question.
Okay.
She just said yes.
How to get rid. Okay, that's what we're going to move on to now. So let's go ahead. I'm going to bring back in the hand camera here so we can see what I'm doing down here. Okay, so if yours is always tight, definitely try some of those relaxing tips and try a bigger handled hook. But we're going to get more into the nitty gritty of it here in just a moment. So first and foremost, let's talk about how to make a swatch. I have several of them here. And one thing you might notice, just I don't have tiny hands. These are not 4 by 4 inches. 4 by 4 inches, like we saw on the label, is a really, really typical, it's sort of the standard size. 4 inches by 4 inches or 10 inches by 10 inches, or excuse me, centimeters, is typical. Sometimes someone will, a designer might ask you to make a much larger gauge swatch because, just the specifics of that pattern require it. But when you've got your typical 4 inch by 4 inch one, I want you to go bigger. Go at least 6 inches by 6 inches if you can. The reason is sometimes the tension on the sides of our projects in that first row can be a little tighter or a little looser or just different than once we get into the stride of those stitches. So when we're measuring our gauge, we're going to be measuring the inside of that swatch. We don't want to measure right up along any edges because that's not going to give us as accurate of a measurement. So when it's time to make your gauge swatch, it should be whatever stitch is called for in the gauge that's listed in the pattern. So for instance, if it said 5 SC by 10 rows equals 4 inches, then, you'll need to use single crochet stitches to make that swatch. If it said, just trying to make up some random numbers here, if it had said 10 stitches by 10 rows equals 4 inches in DC, then you would know you need to make double crochet stitches to make that gauge swatch. Sometimes it'll say in the main stitch pattern, and then you need to jump down into the pattern to see what that stitch pattern is. And then every once in a while, you'll see it for in the round. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. So your typical gauge swatch is going to be in rows, basically square. Make it bigger than 4 inches so that we can get 4 inches on the inside to measure. So once you've got your piece made, and you think, okay, this looks really good. I've made it with the hook that was recommended in the pattern. Let's see how it measures up. Obviously, at that point, you're going to need a measuring tape. Doesn't have to be, a Red Heart one. It can be whatever measuring tape you have handy. One note, though, about these measuring tapes is that over time, they will stretch. You can see it's a plasticky type substance, whatever measuring tapes are made out of. I don't honestly know. But over time, if you're holding this at a high tension level, if you're holding it real tight, these can get stretched out. So, don't hold on to the same one of these maybe for 10 years and expect them to measure, your 4 inches is going to get longer and longer. So what I like to do is when I use these is I'll pick a random number like a 10 or a 20 and sort of measure between 20 and 24, just so that I go a little further into the tape and I know those first 10 inches just have such a knack for getting stretched out. So right here, I have a swatch made with the Bernat Softy Baby, or excuse me, Bernat Softy Chunky, not the baby, the big chunky stuff. This is a 5 gauge, or a 5 weight rather, and it's all single crochets. So we need to be able to read our stitches a little bit here. So we can see this is a stitch, this is a stitch, this is a stitch. And then I love single crochet for this. You can kind of see like there's little valleys, and those are every 2 rows in single crochet because you've got one going this way and one going this way, and it just creates that little line right there. So that gives us some starting points here. So let's go ahead and just dive in and measure this one. I'm going to find my 4 inches right there. Got my 20 to 24 inches right here on my measuring tape. And I'm just going to start by literally holding it right up against my swatch. And what I want to do is I want to get my starting line right to the side of one stitch and then see where that lands me 4 inches out. And sometimes that's going to land you smack dab in the middle of a stitch. So that's why sometimes you'll see gauge swatches written out for 2 inches or 3 inches or 6 inches. It means they might have had one of these issues where it landed right in the middle of the stitch. So they decided, well, if we go to 5 inches or 6 inches, it's going to be perfect. So that will be a better measurement for them. So again, that's something you need to look at for the pattern you're following. But let's go ahead and do this one. So for 4 inches, I would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, almost all of that 8th stitch. So I would probably say I've got 8 stitches of single crochet in 4 inches. Now, I got very lucky. That just happened to match what was on the label, but there was no guarantee that that's what was going to happen. Now, to measure the rows, we have to go, obviously, then the other direction. We go this way for our stitches and this way for our rows. So what I want to do now is line up that starting point on my measuring tape at the bottom of one of these rows. And again, I want to stay on the inside because that first row, there can be funky stuff there. You've got a chain row that's involved. You might have used foundation stitches, which could slightly change the height of the stitch. So that's why we want to come into the middle of our swatch here. So here it looks like we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, almost 10. It's almost 9.5, almost 10. You can see right there that 4 inches, maybe just a hair below the top of that row right there. So just over 9 rows in those 4 inches. So that would be measuring the gauge for this swatch. Now that was in single crochet. If you're following the pattern, it may very well call for a different number of stitches. Here I have Caron Simply Soft, which is a 4 weight. So you can see the stitches are quite a bit smaller, and I used a smaller hook. For this one, I did use, let's go ahead and take a look at another one here. This is my Caron Simply Soft. You can see it's a little thinner because I already made my gauge swatch with it. You can see this one calls for a USH hook, so that's what I used to make this one. And we'll see how close I get. How close is my tension to this average tension? 13 single crochet and 14 rows. So let's find out. I actually did not pre-measure this, so we're finding out here together. So this time I find my measurement tape here again, and we want to just hold it right up there. And you can look for the part of the stitch that's easiest for you to find. These are half double crochets. Let me pull them up a little closer here so you can see that. You can tell they're half double crochets because they look a lot like single crochets, but they've got that extra, there we are, that extra horizontal bar in them right there. So this would be 2 rows of half double crochet. And then you can decide to count from across the bottom of those. You can find that horizontal bar, whatever part of the stitch you like to look at, whatever part is going to be easiest for you to identify on that swatch. So come back in here with my 4 inches. And for this one, I think it's going to be easier to look at the bottom of the stitch right there. Let me grab a little pointer. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, move that about there, 14. Just barely that 14th one is in there. So we got 14 single crochet or half double crochets. This was half double crochets too, so it is going to be a little different, but the width should be about the same. Now the height's probably going to be very different because I did do a different stitch. So we want to find the bottom of a row right there that we can start our count at. get this laid out a little flatter here on my desk. There we go. And we want to try and keep it just as straight up there as we can. You can use the stitches as your guide or just eyeball it, but we don't want to, you know, go measuring off this way. We want to try and keep it really, really perpendicular to our project here. So then we would count up our rows. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and it looks like 11. No, just over 10. My bad. Let's do that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then, yeah, that one's right about there. So just barely over 10 rows. So like I said, this was a different stitch than was recommended on the label. So our numbers are going to be a little different anyway, but they're also going to be different due to your personal gauge. Here is one more swatch that I made. I just wanted to get another one on here. This is with Peyton's Grace. So this is a 3 or a lightweight yarn. Let me go ahead and pull it up a little closer here so you can see this is double crochet stitches. So we still have the bottom of our rows to look for and the top of our rows. So we've got 2 rows there. But you can see these stitches are a lot taller, so we're going to have a lot fewer of them, or a lot fewer rows within those 4 inches if we were using the same yarn. This is a much thinner yarn. This one recommends, let me find here our little thing, our little gauge info here. For this one, it recommends a USF hook, which is 3.75 millimeters. So a much smaller hook, we're going to have much smaller stitches. So if I find my 20 to 24 here, again, we just want to make sure to come from the inside of the swatch, right in the middle as much as we can. And then you can count out how many stitches and how many rows. So the stitches are the same, but these are taller rows. I really like the way that 24 is lining up right there at the top. So that's great. So we can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep, 10 rows of double crochet. So you might say, well, how can we have 10 rows of this and 10 rows of that if they're very different sizes, etc.? We have different stitches. These are double crochet stitches. They're going to be taller. Half double crochet stitches are going to be shorter. And of course, single crochet stitches are going to be shorter still. But we've got different weights of yarn. So all of these things definitely affect what your gauge is, basically how many stitches and how many rows you have within that set number of inches. Again, usually 4. So that is how you measure them. So next I want to talk about how you change it. How do you play with that? What if you have measured your gauge and it doesn't match the pattern? If it's real close, you know, that we're talking about that little quarter of an extra stitch there, I wouldn't worry about it. But sometimes it might be very, very different. So there's a couple different things we can do to work on that. But before I move on to that, I wanted to ask again if there were any questions. I think Patricia may have stepped away, so I was trying to also get some sneaky coffee there. All right, so let's get back to it, and hopefully, oh, Patricia, are you back?
Yes, sorry, I was on mute.
Okay. Oh, that's all right. Were there any questions I could answer before we move on to how to play with that gauge?
I think you're going to answer this question in the next section, but Teresa was mentioning that she has problems controlling the tension and that she's been crocheting for about 4 years. How can I fix it?
Well, definitely, like I say, normally I would say practice, but it does sound like you've been crocheting for a while now. So think about how you're holding your body if you are starting out relaxed, but if you are watching a horror movie, those shoulders might be creeping back up as you go. You know, if you're watching something hilarious, it might loosen up. It's happened to me, absolutely. If you're, you know, it just depends what you're doing. If you're getting excited, if you are, you know, having an argument with someone, you know, if you're watching the news, your crochet gauge may tighten up and loosen up as you go. So that's why I say, even if you don't feel like you're crocheting tightly, it's a great idea to try and relax. Just try and relax and kind of make that your baseline. It'll be better for your hands and elbows. You know, it'll keep you from injuring yourself as much, but it'll also help with your overall tension. Additionally, trying other hooks. Try some of those other hook styles. It might be if you're using one particular one that it's making you hold on, you know, hold on in that little death grip or whatever, that another one would allow you to open up that hand and relax a little bit. Alternatively, another thing you can try is changing how you hold your hook. A lot of us were taught one way or another, whichever way, and they're all valid. They're all fine. So if you were taught to crochet this way, you could try holding your hook that way. If you're holding your hook this way, try holding it the other way. I find that I actually tend to vary how I hold my hook depending on the thickness of the yarn I'm working with. When I'm working with finer yarns, I tend to hold it like this. And then when I'm working with something really big and thick, like a Bernat blanket, I might hold my hook like this because I need a little bit more muscle to pull those stitches through. Fuzzier yarns take a little bit more muscle, so those can be more difficult to get a really consistent crochet gauge with, simply because you can affect that within the stitch so much more, as we'll see here in just a little bit. So all of those things, I would definitely give those things a try. Try some different hooks. Try and just set a baseline of, a more relaxed stance in your shoulders and hands and arms. And that should help. And then just, pay attention to where your shoulders are going. And, if you're watching really tense stuff on TV while you crochet, or, if you're at work and trying to sneak it in a few minutes, or trying to do it at the stoplight, which I do not recommend, then, you might end up with a few wonky stitches. So, and then yes, definitely try holding your hook in a few different styles. You might find that the way you were taught and the way you've been doing it isn't actually what works best for your hand. Everybody is going to do it a little bit differently. I don't think there's really any tutorials on how to change your hook because, again, it's such a personal thing. Most of the time, people talk about two basic styles of holding your hook. You've got your overhand or knife method, I think is called this. This one's usually called. You can see you could do it like this. A lot of people rest their thumb on the flat portion there of the hook. That's kind of what that's for usually. But other people, might hold it like this. I actually have a blog post that I did on Moogly several years ago, where I asked people to send in pictures of how they hold their hook and how they're tensioning their yarn. And keep in mind that's a factor as well. We'll talk about that in a moment. But I got probably 50, 60 pictures, and they were all different. Everybody's was just so slightly different. I even had one lady send in a picture of how she crochets one-handed because she only has one hand. So if you've been doing the other hook or the other hand hold, you could try this one. This is one that I tend to use a lot. I like to roll my hooks as I'm making my stitches. It's a little different. It's just the way I learned, the way I picked it up. Some people, really hold down on here and like to pinch that little grip right there and move their wrist to crochet. All of these things, you just need to find what's working for you and what helps you create an even tension. You want to have an even tension. You want your stitches to all be the same size. In terms of making them match the designers, that's where I'm going to talk about here how to do that. But overall, if you are using this hook, I don't want you to necessarily right away try and use this hook to change the size of each stitch as you're making it. You need to find a way to crochet that feels good to your hands so that you can maintain it across the whole project. So I hope that helps with that. So let's talk about matching gauge. What happens when you are making this project and it's beautiful, you've got your beautiful even stitches, you've got a hook that feels great in your hand, but the stitches are the wrong size, or your rows are too short, or for whatever reason, your number is not the number that you need to make this project the right size. So what are you going to do? Well, it depends. The first thing you can do is change the hook size. The hook size is just what that designer used to get stitches those size. The hook size recommended on the label is just the hook size that they used to make that gauge swatch that was on the label. So when you're following a pattern, you'll notice sometimes that they use a very different hook size than what was recommended on the yarn label. That's what they used to get their stitch sizes. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's what you're going to use to get that same stitch size. Excuse me. So let's say, I'm going to grab a couple hooks here. Let's say that the designer used an 8mm. That's what I used for this one right here. So I made this washcloth, and I want you to make this washcloth the same size, but I used this hook. But yours is coming out smaller. What does that mean? That means your stitches are smaller than my stitches. So if your stitches are smaller than my stitches, of course, I don't have a bigger one here on me, but you would want to grab a bigger hook. A bigger hook will make your stitches bigger. If I wanted you to make this little washcloth right here, and all of a sudden yours was really, really big, that means you need to use a smaller hook. Go down a size, maybe 2, depending on the project, depending on how much bigger it is. So the first thing you can do is change the size of the hook you're using to see if that gets you to that same gauge for that pattern. That's the quickest and easiest way to do it. It's also a great reason to have a full set of hooks if you can. You know, if you're just starting out and you only have a few hooks and a few sizes, just definitely make sure, you know, try and have the ones above and below that size. For instance, this one is a 6.5 millimeter. If I were to make somebody else's pattern that called for a 6.5 millimeter and it was for a sweater or something, oops, went out of focus, there we are. I would make sure that I also bring with me on that, for that project, that I also have a 6 millimeter, that I might have a 7 millimeter or an 8 millimeter. I might even have a 5.5 millimeter an eye hook on hand, because I may very well need to change the size of the hook that I'm using in order to get the same size stitches that they're making. And that's totally valid. And that is why a lot of times on patterns, you'll see when they list the hook, it'll say, for this pattern, use a K hook, for instance, or the hook size needed to get gauge. And that's what that's all about. Now, that said, when you are crocheting, the hook size, the thing that it affects most is the width of the stitches. It can also affect the height, but it's really going to affect the width. So if you're having trouble matching a pattern's gauge, first things first, use the hook size that gets you to gauge for the number of stitches across. That's going to be the key there. Now, hopefully that will also get you to match row gauge. But what happens when you've mixed up the hook size, you've tried your different hooks, you get the stitch gauge right, but the row gauge is still really off? I have a tip for that. So let me grab a hook here and go ahead and I'm going to grab the bigger one so we'll just work right off our little swatch here. So let's say I need to find a way to make those stitches taller or shorter. This is where that tension hand comes in. The hand that you're using to hold your yarn. Now, here's the funny thing. It's not always a hand. Like I said, I had somebody who sent in a picture how they crochet one-handed. I had another person send in a picture. They use their feet to tension their yarn. So however you want to do it is totally up to you. Some people actually literally run it between their toes, and I've never done it, but it works for them. So when you are crocheting, you can really be pinching down on this yarn in your non-hook hand. Like I say, you can be letting it flow. Some people really wind it between their fingers like a whole bunch. I tend to just drape it over my first finger. That doesn't mean it's right. That means it's just what works for me. So let's go ahead. I'm just going to jump in here onto this little swatch and get my yarn attached here. Okay, so this little swatch right here is all single crochets. So that's what I would be crocheting with here. So let's say I've got the right hook size here for my width for a number of stitches, but I want to make my stitches a little taller. We'll do taller first, and then we'll go with shorter, because most people, their tension is a little too tight. So the first things first, like I say, you want to relax the non-hook hand. Make sure that you're not putting a ton of pressure on that yarn. If you're pulling back on that yarn, that is going to make the loop on your hook really tight. And if you do that throughout your stitch, it's going to make your stitch really tight. So let's go into this next stitch and say we're going to make a single crochet. The yarn over and pull up my loop. Now, what I want you to do, if you're finding your stitches are too short, is go ahead and give that hook a wiggle, just a little bit of a wiggle. Make sure you're pulling that loop up to the same height there, and make sure that you're not really pulling back down on that yarn. You see how that pulled that hook right back down into my project? That would be a really, really tight stitch. I don't want that. I want to go ahead, let the hook size determine the size of your loops. Don't try and keep it real tight to the loop. Just keep it real loose and, not too loose, but so you can get your hook through there. This part, I know it's hard to describe in words. It does just kind of take practice and feeling it and feeling where, okay, that feels really good. Then, of course, to finish our stitch, let me find the end of my yarn here, we would yarn over and pull that loop through. So as I made that motion, I just let that yarn flow right over my finger. After I've made that stitch, we still have to watch our tension, because I could still pull back down and make that really tight. But I want to take the time to make sure that I keep it real loose. So let's say I make my stitch like that, and it's still too short. Well, what we want to do is make sure that that very first loop that's on our hook before we even begin the stitch is nice and high. Before we go in and pull that one up nice and high as well. There, you can see right away, that single crochet is significantly taller than the one I made right before. Some people call this the golden loop method, using your loop to adjust the size. Now, even though the rest of this is single crochet, let's go ahead and do that with half double crochet. So I'm going to yarn over first, and again, I want to make sure that I'm not pulling right down on my hook. I'll go right into that next stitch, yarn over and pull up my loop. I'm going to go ahead and pull that up. A lot of people, when they make their crochet stitches, using usually this end of the yarn by pulling down on it, they ride their stitches. They keep them real close to the surface or real close to the previous row. And that's what you can do if your stitches are too tall. You want to keep them real close. But if your stitches are too short, look there. See, I'm going to pull that loop up to the same height as the other two, even though that's the one coming out of that stitch there. I'm going to go ahead and pull that one up as well before I yarn over and pull through two, and yarn over and pull through two. So that is how I would raise that, or excuse me, we're going to do a half double crochet, weren't we? Oops. Oh well, same thing. Just pull it on through. There we are. Now it's a half double crochet. For a double crochet, well, we did just see it. We go into that one. Same thing. Just pull those loops up nice and high before we yarn over and pull through to finish the stitch. Again, just keep the tension here relaxed. So that's how we would make them taller, shorter, the opposite thing. That's when maybe you want to add a little more grip. When I'm trying to crochet really tightly, when I want a really firm fabric, I don't want to be able to see between the stitches. I might want it to stand up on its own for something like a basket. That's when I am going to put a little bit more tension on this yarn. I might wind it between a couple fingers. I'm going to keep those fingers pinched together real tight. And then when I make those stitches, I'm going to keep a good amount of tension here. I've yarned over. Let's go ahead and make a half double, or let's make a double crochet. I'll go into that stitch, and then instead of pulling those loops up, I'm going to keep it right down here. I'm going to keep it real low. Then when I yarn over and pull through two, it's a little tougher to pull through. I had to use a little bit more muscle. But you can see here, let me pull it out now. You can see that half double crochet I did right there, a lot bigger than that one. I'm kind of pull them up here. So you can see it's just, this one looks pretty anemic next to this chunky boy right there. So yeah, you can get just by how you are tensioning your yarn can affect your gauge right there. So let's go ahead and take a break right here. Are there any questions I can answer?
Yes, and Julia has a question that I think it's related to what we were just talking about. I find that if my row gauge is off a bit, I can do more rows or less rows. Is that the right thing to do to get
Absolutely. That is another, absolutely. If that's a great solution, especially if you are making something like a blanket or a really simple sweater, like a Ruana type style. Absolutely. You can just add more rows in that pattern. Again, kind of depends on the pattern. Take a look at the pattern. Every pattern is going to be different, but adding more rows is a great way. You know, if you just need more length, just make sure if it is something like a sweater that if you're adding more rows to the front, make yourself a little note. You add those same number of rows to the back so that your pieces still match up. One of the things I was talking about was gauge is important, not just for garments that you want to fit, but when you have two pieces that you need to seam together. Now, obviously, this would be a poor example. These are two different yarns, and I would not probably be seaming these together. But imagine for a moment that I had two identical pieces here. I want to make sure that gauge in both of these pieces is the same so that they're the same size or however those seams need to match up. That would be another thing. So if you do alter the pattern in order to get the right size, then, like I say, just make sure you take a note so you can make sure you do it on the other pieces as necessary. Oops, bumped the little microphone there. So yes, adding more rows to add more length is a great solution if possible. Also, if you have made your gauge swatch and you used your hook and you really like the fabric you got, it's just the right weight for you. It's got just the right amount of drape. So you don't want to change your hook size to match the designer's. Again, take a look at the pattern. If it's a simple pattern, if it's simple enough, you might also be able to add more stitches. So that is another thing you can find on written patterns. Sometimes they'll include something that's called the stitch multiple. And the stitch multiple is often written out as, the numbers themselves, of course, vary completely, but it might be something like multiple of 4 plus 3, or multiple of 10 plus 16. They could be any numbers, but what that means is you need to have a multiple of 10 stitches plus 16 tacked on at the end in order to get that stitch pattern to work, or again, whatever those numbers are. When we're just working with single crochets or half double crochets or double crochets like we've got here, there's not a set number of stitches. You know, I could make any number of stitches I wanted. But for some stitch patterns, you need to have a specific number of stitches to get that pattern to work. For instance, cabling or even a moss stitch, you know, you have to have a certain number of stitches so that it ends on the right kind of stitch. So if you want to add more stitches to your rows to get your pieces to be the same size as the pieces you're making, again, you just need to look at that pattern to see if that's feasible. For instance, if, and this can be really helpful too if you are doing a yarn substitution. Maybe the yarn you've picked out is just a hair lighter or a hair thicker than what the designer used. And there's lots of great reasons to pick out a different yarn. Maybe it's something in your stash. Maybe the yarn the designer used has been discontinued. That happens too. So if you have to do a yarn substitution and you have to do that gauge swatch, you may be able to use that stitch multiple information to figure out, okay, this yarn is thinner, it's making smaller stitches, but I can add an extra 4 stitches or whatever that stitch multiple is and get the width that I need for that project. So if you don't want to play with your hook and you don't want to play with the loop method, if you will, then when you are following that pattern, absolutely, you can figure out, is it simple enough that I can just add a few more rows to get the length I want, or do another repeat of that width to get the width I want? Essentially, like I say, gauge is telling us the size of the stitches, but if it's a pattern with some shapes and a schematic where you know that I need a block of single crochet that is, for instance, 6 inches by 6 inches, then you can find the hook that gives you the fabric you like, you know, whether that's a washcloth or a basket or a sweater, whatever it is. If you like that fabric, you could also crochet to those dimensions. So that is another way sort of going around gauge, but really paying attention to, if you know your stitches are smaller because of the yarn or the hook or just your personal tension level, you can always look at adding some more stitches there. That's something I certainly think some people do. Related to adding more rows for length, if you are making a crochet square, perhaps for a washcloth or a 12-inch square or a 9-inch square for a blanket, like motifs. A lot of times motifs are made from working, you know, in the round and working right out, or you might work rows and then work around all around it for a border or edging. And something I recommend in the Moogly Crochet Along is if you've made your square according to the designer's directions and the square is a little too small, you know, it's 11 inches across or 10 inches or whatever, then you can just continue to add more rounds to the outside. So there's some leeway there for sure. You don't have to depend necessarily completely on the size of your stitches. You can make that pattern your own, add an extra round to the border or add a couple extra rows. This is also a great tip if you're making, for example, a sweater and you're getting gauge, but that sweater's a little short. It's maybe got a cropped length and you prefer a tunic length. Look at adding some more rows. It's going to take more yarn, so do keep that in mind. You'll want to go ahead and buy more yarn if you're adding on. But I always recommend an extra skein anyway, just in case. And who, you know, there's always something you'll find to do with the extra yarn on your shelf, right? So go ahead and play with that and just kind of, like I say, pay attention to it and then think about how you want to alter it. You might want to change the size of your stitches. You might want to change your gauge to match the designer's gauge, or you might want to go ahead and play with that pattern a little bit and add an extra repeat or add a couple extra rows, especially, like I say, if you're really liking the fabric that you're getting with your yarn and hook combo. I hope that answered that. Are there any other questions?
Angela was asking, what if your tension is too loose?
If your tension is too loose, I would say do try tensioning your yarn with your non-hook hand a little bit tighter. That can be step one. I wouldn't say go get tense or watch horror movies while you crochet, but maybe do go ahead and try that smaller hook size. You know, especially if you crochet really loosely, going down to a smaller hook can be a really easy way to fix that. I know lots of crocheters have mentioned to me over the years that I just crochet a lot looser than them, so they automatically go down a hook size when they make one of my patterns and it works out. I've had people say the opposite, that I crochet tighter, so they have to go up a hook size. But you can definitely, play with that a little bit within your own gauge and see how it does affect your own stitches. I did see a question pop up asking if the hook material can affect things, and absolutely it can. All I have in front of me right now, unfortunately, are these metal hooks, so I can't bring up an opposite one. But as you can imagine, there are hooks made out of bamboo, there are hooks made out of other woods, there are hooks made out of plastic, and all of those are going to have a different level of slickness and drag, I guess would be the word, a different level of drag. So as you are crocheting and that yarn is sliding along your hook, if it's something like bamboo, I find bamboo to be really grippy myself. Usually my bamboo hooks tend to be not as slidey. The yarn doesn't want to slide as much. And that can also be affected by the yarn itself too. If you've got something like Bernat blanket that's really fuzzy, it might hold onto the hook a little tighter. If you've got something real slick, like Karen Simply Soft here, it's probably going to glide really easily. And if you change the hook material, that can change your gauge as well, because it might grip onto that yarn a little bit and not let you pull through quite as easily. I actually really recommend using wooden knitting needles for people who are learning how to knit in particular, because for me as a crocheter, when I learned to knit, I had a lot of trouble with all my stitches wanted to just fly off the end of my needles, right? I didn't have that hook to hold them on that I was used to. But by using wooden needles, the bamboo needles had, and even honestly, just very inexpensive ones, because they weren't slick, because they were a little grippy, they were a little rougher wood, they would hold on to my yarn and help me keep them on my needles a little bit while I learned how to control those stitches. So definitely, if you've got different types of hooks in your stash, some wooden ones, some plastic ones, yeah, definitely, if you're having trouble getting gauge, try a different one. Wood, for me, I think makes smaller stitches just because it grips on a little bit more. Plastic can be real variable. I'll be honest, I don't use plastic hooks very often. I don't prefer to use them. But metal is usually pretty slick, so that can help with that as well. And I think I saw another question pop up, but I missed it. It went away too quickly.
Oh, I can read it for you.
Thank you.
I do both too tight and too loose. How can I fix this?
Well, if it's in the same project, I would say that goes back again to finding a hook that feels good in your hand, so that you're not constantly trying to relax your hand. If you find that you're gripping it all the time and you're constantly having to relax it, then those stitches where you're gripping it are going to be tighter than the stitches where you're relaxing. So overall, just trying to find a consistent way to sit and set yourself up and relax your shoulders. That should help with that. And then honestly, just paying attention and practice, and maybe trying some different hooks. Different people find that they are more consistent with other kinds of hooks too. Just for whatever reason, everybody's hands are different. Try a different hook and see if that doesn't give you a more even tension. Certainly that can very much be affected by the hook you're using. And of course, how you're tensioning your yarn in your non-hook hand as well. So if you're going back and forth between iron grip and just letting it flow, any of those changes are going to affect your gauge. Okay, and then I think there was another question that popped up.
Gail has a really good question.
Okay.
What do you do with the leftover gauge samples? I hate the yarn. Maybe they can be turned into mug rugs.
Absolutely. You could do mug rugs out of them. I love, especially when I'm making a new stitch, if I'm learning a new stitch, something a little more complicated than this, I will a lot of times use like a cotton yarn, so that I can just make them and turn them into dishcloths. When I want to learn a new crochet stitch or a new technique, I'll make it a washcloth size, and then I just throw it in the drawer with the rest of my dishcloths. I love those for the kitchen and all over the house, and absolutely I use them as mug rugs. Trivets under hot food is great. If you want to collect them over time, and if you always manage to make them the same size, these came so close, I wasn't even trying, but darn close, you could seam them together to make a beautiful patchwork blanket. Just, kind of make sure they're all made out of the same thing. Don't try and mix your wools and your acrylics, or when you wash it, it's not going to go well. But definitely, you can do that. I keep them around for me. My job, of course, is a little different than most people's, but I keep them around for things like this. When I want to grab something to demonstrate to someone, I can say, okay, let's just grab this yarn and continue to work along here. and then different things like that. Anytime, yeah, you just need a little cloth or something, a little pad, a little doily, a mug rug, a trivet. I think, yeah, it's like I say, when I learn a new stitch, I just make them in cotton so that I can throw them right into the dishcloth drawer. But otherwise, something like this, I might turn into, yeah, a mug rug, or I might keep it on my desk for when I'm eating. A lot of times I'll keep these things around for instance, right now, if I'm on camera, I can put these hooks down and they're not going to be noisy against the desk. So you could even have a little cloth off to the side as you're crocheting so your hooks don't roll away, and to keep as a little mat for all your supplies. Like so. If the swatch is big enough, you could turn it into a scarf. You can just have all sorts of fun with it. When I was first learning how to crochet, I decided to make a scarf, like most people do, I think. And I got about, let's see, we'll say about double this length in my scarf before I decided, okay, I know how to single crochet now. I want to make something else. So I literally just folded it up, seamed up the sides, and added a little handle and made a purse for my daughter. So that would be another option. You could take a couple of them that you've made, seam them together, and you've suddenly got a little thing with a pocket there. So yeah, you can have a lot of fun with your little swatches that you've made. I do all sorts of, I tend to keep these. I don't just toss them or anything. And then of course, if you are making something that is advertised to be a one skein pattern, you're going to want to pull that back out and use it to make the actual project. So you can always do that too. You can make your gauge swatch. You don't have to cut the yarn. I cut the yarn on these for our class today, but you don't have to cut the yarn. You can take your measurement. If you've got your gauge, you're all set. You can wind that right back onto the skein and still reuse the yarn. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to cut it off, you know, and make it a permanent gauge swatch. You can wind it right back onto the skein and use it again. Were there any other questions I could answer?
Let me see, something just came in. Oh, can we go over counting our double crochet rows again? I have trouble reading crochet rows at times.
All right, so this one is a little bit smaller. I'm trying to think if I don't think I have anything I can quite raise it up on, but let's get something here. There, I couldn't find where I put my tape measure. Okay, so these are the double crochets. There we are. I'll hold this up nice and high here so we can get a close look at these stitches. So we want to be able to read our double crochet stitches. You can see, let's actually, that would be, sorry, I'm having to glance back and forth between the monitor to make sure I'm pointing at the one I think I'm pointing at here. So, okay, so right there, we have the bottom of the stitch right there. You can see where it goes into the stitch below it, those two little legs. Then we've got that horizontal bar right there. That's in the middle. That's that horizontal bar we see at the top when we're looking at half double crochet stitches. And then we've got more stitch happening up here. So you can see though how that stitch above it is worked right into that one. So that would be the top that we would measure for that row. And that right there would be the bottom that we measure for that row. So you can see that right there is the body or the post of our double crochet stitch. Row above it, we can see it from behind. Looks a little different from behind. So when it's time to count those rows, I'm going to try and just point at it here, I think. We want to measure from the bottom of a row to the top or bottom of the row 4 inches away, or whatever that pattern calls for. It might say 6, it might say 10, it might say 2. But you just want to measure, find the bottom of one of those rows and measure up from there. So you can really look, those two little legs that you can see coming down into the stitch below. A little bit easier with double crochet because we've got that nice space to see between our stitches, between those posts right there. So hopefully that made it a little easier. Just to measure one more time. Let's go ahead and start with 10 here, because 10 is what's out. So I would just line that right up there. Probably come down a little further. Here we are. Make sure we're in the middle. And hopefully you can see, I know it's kind of small here on camera. Got that lined up with the bottom. Might be easier to see if I line up there with the bottom of that row, because you can see that divot a little bit there. Line that right up. Hold it straight up. Just get it resting here so I can use my other hand. There we are. And so we would count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 rows. Because if you can see, I'm gonna just hold it right up here. Oop, I'll just line it back up. this is right where that 14 landed. Right there where you can see the bottom of one stitch is going into the stitch beneath it. So that would be where you would stop counting for that number of rows. Now, like I say, sometimes it'll land right in the middle, and then you kind of have to make a decision. Is this sweater going to be just a little bit longer on me, just a little bit shorter? Am I going to add a row, or am I going to start playing with my hook size or with my loop method? But that is your double crochet close-up. So I think I saw another question come up.
Yes, Edie's asking, my skein label has a gauge notion for knitting, but it just says 5 millimeters, 8H, no stitch number, no row number, no swatch, no swatch size. Any way to determine the gauge?
That manufacturer has not chosen to provide a crochet gauge, so it's whatever it is for you. And that's what I really want to emphasize, in general. Just because it says on the label that you should get 8 single crochets and 9 rows in 4 inches, that doesn't mean that's necessarily what you want for your project. It doesn't necessarily mean that's what you need to get when you're using this yarn. It's just a jumping off point. It's just something to get you started. It says that's what they got when they used an L hook. When I used an L hook with this yarn, bring that swatch back over here, you can see with single crochets, which is what they recommend for that gauge swatch, this is a really tight fabric. It's very thick. It's not quite stiff, but it's a little stiff. If I were to make a sweater out of this yarn, a crocheted sweater, I would go up several hook sizes because I would want it to be a looser, drapier, bigger stitch. If I were making a basket out of this yarn, I would use a smaller hook because I would want those stitches to be really tight and I would want them to create a stiff fabric, a really dense fabric. So, like I say, don't worry if you're not matching these numbers that's on your skein or if it's not provided, because yours is probably going to be different anyway, and this might not even be the type of fabric that you want to get out of this skein. You might want something very different than what they made right there. So that would be my tip for that. I wouldn't worry too much about it because yours is probably going to be unique to you anyway. It's always, a little annoying when the information we want isn't there, but like I say, yours is going to be a little different anyway. And you don't have to match what's on the label. You just need to try and match what's in the pattern, which can be very different than what you find on the label. When someone says go up a hook size, it's usually the next hook size. So as we know, hooks are kind of crazy, right? The sizing doesn't always make sense. Sometimes it goes up by 1 millimeter. Sometimes it goes up by 0.5 millimeter down in the smaller sizes, which of course I'm not picking up here. Let's see. Down in the smaller sizes, you might have one that's, every 1/4 of a millimeter. I know there's a 3.75 somewhere around here. So you may end up going up a hook size that's just one small different hook size. You might end up going several hook sizes or down several hook sizes. Again, it's not really a right or wrong. It's what gives you the fabric you like. So, it's often just determined on what's available. Honestly, like 6 millimeter, I know there's a 6.5 millimeter out there. 7 millimeter hooks exist, but they can be difficult to find, and not every manufacturer makes them, so you might need to jump to an 8. And then again, that's where you need to use your best judgment. Am I still getting fabric that I like with that different hook size? Or do I need to go back and maybe think about adding a row or an extra stitch repeat instead? Especially when substituting yarns, because you may not be able to get exactly the same gauge in that yarn, or that same gauge in that yarn might not look as good as that gauge did in that other yarn. So again, it's just one more factor to take into account, but it isn't necessarily a hard and fast rule. I hope that helps. Okay. Alrighty. Were there any other questions? I know we've hit our time limit here, but if there's anything else?
I don't see any new questions coming in. Oh, Gail has a question. Have you ever made a blanket changing colors and hook size for variety?
I have definitely made blankets changing colors. I think that's a really fun thing to do, but changing your hook size is going to be tricky because suddenly if these, say I'm making a blanket, it would be a very small blanket. Let's say I'm making a blanket that's 10 stitches wide, and all of a sudden I change my hook size and those stitches get wider, my blanket's going to have wobbly edges. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So I think that's it. I think we're officially out of time. We'll go ahead and come back to me so I can say thank you all so much for joining us today. I hope that you learned something about gauge and tension. If you need to rewatch, of course, the class will be recorded, and you can always contact me through mooglyblog.com if you have any questions. So thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Just a reminder that the class will be available at michaels.com classes, the recording of today's class. And if you do share your work, you can do so by using hashtag Make It With Michaels and hashtag Yarnspo. Have a good day, everyone.
Bye.